left with nothing but tears until a mysterious millionaire gave her everything she lost, asterisk shattered. Dreams and abandoned hope. The sterile white walls of City General Hospital seemed to close in around Emma Sinclair as another wave of pain crashed through her body. 22 hours of labor, and still no sign of David? Her husband of 3 years had promised to be there, had sworn he wanted this family they were creating together, but the empty chair beside her bed told a different story. Emma gripped the metal bed rails until her knuckles turned white, her wedding ring cutting into her swollen finger. The small emerald stone that had once symbolized forever now felt like a cruel joke against her skin. Where could he possibly be on the most important day of their lives, the day their twin daughters were supposed to enter the world, surrounded by love and joy? Nurse Helen approached with gentle steps, her silver hair pulled back in a neat bun and kind eyes that had witnessed countless births. She carried the warmth of someone who understood that bringing life into the world was both miracle and trial. "Sweetie, let's focus on these precious babies," Helen said softly, checking Emma's vitals with practiced efficiency. "Sometimes fathers get overwhelmed. He'll come around when he sees those beautiful faces." But Emma knew better. The warning signs had been growing like weeds in their marriage garden for months. David's late nights that smelled of cheap perfume and expensive whiskey. His growing irritation whenever she mentioned the babies, his constant complaints about money, about how twins would ruin everything they had built together this morning. When her water broke in their small apartment kitchen, she had called him with shaking hands, expecting concern, excitement, love. Instead, his voice had been cold, almost hostile already. "Christ, Emma, couldn't this wait until after my client presentation? I'm about to close the Morrison deal, David. Babies don't wait for business deals," she had managed between contractions. The line went dead. Now, as another contraction seized her body, Emma understood with crushing clarity that she was utterly alone. The fairy tale she had believed in was crumbling like old paper in her hands. "Mrs. Sinclair, it's time," announced Dr. Martinez, positioning herself with professional calm. "I can see the first baby's head. You need to push with everything you have." Emma closed her eyes and summoned strength from places she didn't know existed. If David wasn't here to witness their children's arrival, she would be strong enough for all 3 of them. She bore down with primal force that seemed to rise from her very soul. 18 minutes later, baby Rose entered the world with a cry that cut through Emma's exhaustion like sunlight through storm clouds. Nurse Helen placed the squirming, perfect little girl on Emma's chest, and for one transcendent moment nothing else existed except this miracle she had created. "She's absolutely beautiful," Helen whispered, tears in her own eyes. "Look at that precious face." Rose was indeed perfect. Tiny rosebud lips, delicate button nose, and incredible dark eyes that seemed to look directly into Emma's soul. Love flooded through Emma with an intensity that made every previous understanding of the word seem shallow. "Hello, baby girl," Emma breathed, touching Rose's impossibly soft cheek. "I'm your mama, and I promise you I will never, ever leave you." 12 minutes later, Lily made her entrance with equal determination. Smaller than her sister, but with a voice that declared her intention to be heard. 2 daughters, 2 perfect. Healthy daughters who would never know the ache of being unwanted if Emma had anything to say about it. As the medical staff cleaned and weighed the babies, Emma found herself staring at the doorway with desperate hope. Surely now David would arrive. Surely he wouldn't miss meeting his daughters. But minutes ticked by with only the soft sounds of newborn cries and medical equipment humming in the background. It was nearly 11 at night when the door finally opened. Emma's heart leaped, then immediately crashed as she took in David's appearance. His brown hair was disheveled, his tie askew, and the smell of alcohol preceded him into the room like a toxic cloud. "So," he said, not moving toward the bed, not asking about her or the babies, "it's finally over." "David," Emma's voice cracked with exhaustion and desperate hope. "Come meet your daughters. They're incredible. Rose and Lily, just like we planned." But instead of joy, David's face twisted with something ugly and cold. His blue eyes, once charming, now looked distant and cruel as they swept over her disheveled appearance. the babies in their bassinets, the chaos of new motherhood. "Look at you," he said, his voice filled with disgust that hit Emma like a physical blow. "You look absolutely terrible. Your hair is a mess, you're all swollen and gross. I can barely recognize the woman I married." Emma felt the world tilt on its axis. "David, I just gave birth to your children. Our children. My children." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Emma, let's be honest here. Look at yourself. Really look. You're ugly now. Used up. Worthless. What man would want this?" He gestured at her with obvious revulsion. "No one could ever love someone like you." The words hit her like bullets, each one finding its mark in her already fragile heart. Emma felt something inside her break completely. The man she had loved, the man she had built her life around, was destroying her with casual cruelty. "You don't mean that?" she whispered, but even as she said it, she could see in his eyes that he absolutely did. David reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a manila envelope. "Actually, I do mean it, and I've made it official," he tossed the papers onto her bed with the same care he might show garbage. "Divorce papers, already filed. My lawyer says I can get out of child support since you probably can't prove they're mine anyway." Emma stared at the papers, the legal language blurring through her tears. "You're leaving me? Today, the day our daughters were born? I'm 29 years old, Emma. I've got my whole life ahead of me. I'm not going to waste it tied down to someone who looks like you, dealing with crying babies and dirty diapers." "But David, we planned this. We talked about names, about their future, about that," was before he cut her off brutally. "Before I realized what having kids would actually mean. Before I saw what pregnancy would do to you. Before I understood that this would be my life, stuck with someone who can't even make herself presentable." Emma's world was collapsing, but somewhere deep inside, a tiny flame of anger began to flicker. "These are your daughters, David. Innocent babies who need their father. They need a father who wants them," David said coldly. "That's not me. It was never me. I went along with this pregnancy nonsense to keep you happy, but I'm done pretending." He moved toward the door, then paused for one final devastating blow. "You know what's funny, Emma? I used to think you were beautiful. Now, looking at you like this, I can't imagine what I ever saw in you. No man will ever want you now. You're damaged goods." With that, David Sinclair walked out of the delivery room, out of the hospital, and out of Emma's life, leaving her clutching divorce papers while her newborn daughters slept peacefully. Unaware that their father had abandoned them before they had even learned his face, Emma buried her face in her hands and wept for her shattered dreams. For her daughters, who would grow up without a father, and for the woman she used to be. That woman had died today in this sterile room under harsh fluorescent lights. But even as her heart broke, something else began to grow in the wreckage. A fierce, protective love for her daughters that was stronger than any pain David could inflict. A determination that burned brighter than despair. As she held Rose and Lily close to her chest, feeling their tiny hearts beating against her own, Emma made a silent vow. She would rebuild herself from these ashes. She would become strong enough, successful enough, worthy enough to prove David wrong about everything. And someday, somehow, he would regret every cruel word he had spoken. She would show him what he had thrown away. She would show the world what she was truly worth. The journey would begin tomorrow. Tonight, she would simply hold her daughters and grieve for the life she thought she was going to have. But tomorrow, she would start building something better, something unbreakable. From ashes to determination, 5 years had passed since the darkest night of Emma's life, and the woman who now stood adjusting her black catering uniform in the mirror bore little resemblance to the broken girl who had wept in that hospital bed. Time had carved away the softness from her face, replacing it with determined lines around her green eyes and a set to her jaw that spoke of battles fought and won. The cramped bathroom of her small 2-bedroom apartment was a far cry from the life she had once imagined, but it was theirs. Every mismatched piece of furniture, every crayon mark on the wall, every photo stuck to the refrigerator with grocery store magnets told the story of a family built from love and sheer determination. Mama Rose is using all the hot water again. Lily's voice carried through the thin door, followed immediately by her twin sister's indignant protest. I was here first, Lily. You always take forever anyway. Emma smiled despite her exhaustion. At 5 years old, her daughters were everything bright and beautiful in her world. Rose, older by 7 minutes, was the thoughtful one, with serious dark eyes and a curious mind that asked questions about everything from why leaves changed colors to why some people had more money than others. Lily was pure sunshine wrapped in 5-year-old determination, with a laugh that could light up the grayest day and dreams that changed hourly between becoming a ballerina, a teacher, or the president. Girls, there's enough bathroom for both of you, Emma called out, applying concealer under her eyes with practiced efficiency. Tonight was the Riverside Foundation Charity Gala, and she couldn't afford to look as tired as she felt. Working 3 different jobs to keep food on the table and dance classes paid for meant sleep was a luxury she rarely enjoyed. Emma opened the bathroom door to find her daughters in matching purple pajamas, Rose holding a toothbrush while Lily bounced impatiently from foot to foot. Mrs. Garcia, their elderly neighbor who watched the girls during Emma's evening events, would be arriving any minute. Before you brush your teeth, Emma said, kneeling. To their level, give Mama her good luck kisses. Both girls giggled and threw their arms around her neck, planting sloppy kisses on her cheeks. Emma breathed in their sweet, innocent scent and felt her heart expand with the fierce love that had sustained her through every difficult day of the past 5 years. Will you bring us back cake? Rose asked quietly, always more aware than her. Sister of the sacrifices Emma made. If there's any left over, baby girl, Emma promised, smoothing Rose's dark hair. But you know the rule about fancy parties. The workers don't usually get to take anything home. That's not fair, Lily declared. With 5-year-old certainty, you work just as hard as anybody else. Emma's throat tightened. Sometimes her daughter's innocence broke her heart with their assumption that fairness was guaranteed in the world. Life isn't always fair, sweetheart, Emma said gently. But that doesn't mean we stop trying to make it better. An hour later, Emma stood in the service entrance of the grand ballroom at the Riverside Hotel. It's the same venue where she had served countless events over the past 3 years. The uniform was borrowed from her friend Maria, slightly too loose in the shoulders, but clean and professional. Emma had learned to be invisible at these events, efficient, polite, and unremarkable. Wealthy people didn't notice the help unless something went wrong. Sinclair, you're on wine service tonight, barked Chef Rodriguez, the perpetually stressed catering manager. Start with the VIP section, then work the main floor. And for heaven's sake, don't spill anything on the guests. Half these people could buy this entire hotel. Emma nodded, lifting her tray of wine glasses with practiced ease. The grand ballroom had been transformed into an elegant wonderland of crystal chandeliers, white linens, and towering floral arrangements that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Well-dressed guests mingled beneath soft lighting there, jewelry catching the warm glow as they discussed stock portfolios and vacation homes in Europe. Emma moved through the crowd like a ghost, offering wine and collecting empty glasses while snippets of conversation floated around her. The market's been incredible this quarter. We're thinking of buying a place in Tuscany. Did you see what Jennifer wore to the Hamilton Gala? Absolutely tragic. She was refilling glasses at a high-top table near the stage when she spotted a familiar face across the room. Jessica Montgomery, her former college roommate, looked exactly as Emma had imagined she would, polished, successful. Wearing a dress that probably cost more than Emma made in 2 months, Emma quickly turned away, hoping to avoid recognition, but it was too late. Emma Sinclair. Jessica's voice carried across the space, bright but confused. Emma forced a smile, acutely aware of her polyester uniform and practical shoes. Hello, Jessica. Oh my God, it really is you. Jessica approached with the kind of smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. What are you doing here? Are you with the foundation? I'm working the event, Emma said quietly, gesturing to her tray. Working? Jessica's voice pitched higher. But you were so talented in college. I thought you'd have your own design firm by now. Didn't you marry that business guy? What's his name? The questions hit like physical blows. Things didn't work out as planned. I have twin daughters now, and I do some freelance design work when I can. Daughters. How wonderful. Jessica's eyes were already scanning the room for an escape. I should let you get back to work. Maybe we can catch up properly sometime. She melted back into the crowd before Emma could respond. Leaving her standing there with wounded pride and burning cheeks, Emma was heading back toward the kitchen. Her head down and her face flushed with embarrassment when disaster struck. A man in an expensive tuxedo stepped backward without looking, directly into her path. She tried to swerve, but physics in a crowded ballroom left no room for miracles. Red wine exploded across his pristine white shirt, like crimson paint on fresh canvas. Oh God, I'm so sorry, Emma gasped, immediately reaching for napkins. I'm so incredibly sorry. Hey, it's okay. A deep voice interrupted her panic. Really? It's completely fine. Emma looked up into the kindest pair of gray eyes she had ever seen. The man was tall, probably in his mid-30s, with dark hair and a face that belonged in magazines. But it was his expression that stopped her cold, not anger or irritation, but genuine concern for her distress. Are you hurt? He asked, reaching out to steady her as she swayed slightly. You look pale. No, I'm fine, but your shirt, it's ruined. It must have cost, it's just a shirt, he said with a smile that made her forget how to breathe. I've got plenty of shirts. Are you sure you're okay? Emma realized she was staring and quickly looked down. I should get you some club soda, or maybe salt. There might still be time to save it. Trust me, the shirt is the least of my concerns right now. His voice was warm, and when she glanced up again, he was still watching her with those incredible gray eyes. I'm Ethan, by the way. Ethan Blackwell. The name hit her like lightning. Ethan Blackwell. Ethan Blackwell. Billionaire philanthropist, tech innovator, and one of the city's most eligible bachelors. She had read articles about his charitable work, seen his picture in magazines, but none of that had captured the warmth in his eyes or the way his smile made her feel like she was the only person in the room. I know who you are, she whispered, then immediately wanted to disappear into the floor. I've read about your foundation work. The literacy programs are incredible. You know about those? Ethan seemed genuinely surprised. Most people just know about the tech company. What's your name? Emma. Emma Sinclair. Well, Emma Sinclair, it's very nice to meet you, even under these circumstances. He gestured to his ruined shirt with good humor. Now, I have a very important question for you. Emma braced herself for anger, for demands that she pay for the shirt, for the humiliation she deserved. Would you like to have coffee with me sometime? Preferably when you're not armed with wine? The question hit her like a physical force. This couldn't be happening. Men like Ethan Blackwell didn't ask women like her for coffee, especially women who had just ruined their expensive clothing. You don't want to have coffee with me? She stammered. I'm pretty sure I'm the expert on what I want, Ethan said gently. And right now, I want to get to know the woman who apologizes so beautifully and knows about literacy programs. Before Emma could form a coherent response, Chef Rodriguez appeared like an avenging culinary angel. Sinclair, what happened here? Did you spill wine on a guest? It was entirely my fault, Ethan said firmly, before Emma could speak. What? Into her without looking? Sir, I'm so sorry, Rodriguez began, his face red with embarrassment. We'll pay for dry cleaning, and if there's anything else actually, there is something else, Ethan interrupted, his eyes never leaving Emma's face. I'd like Miss Sinclair's phone number. Rodriguez looked like he might faint. Emma was certain she would beat him to it. I should get back to work, Emma managed to say. I'm really sorry about your shirt. She turned to flee. But Ethan's voice stopped her, Emma. When she looked back, he was smiling at her like she was something precious and rare. Think about the coffee. I'll be at Cornerstone Cafe on Maple Street tomorrow at 2, just in case you change your mind. Emma nodded mutely and escaped into the crowd, her heart pounding so hard she was surprised the entire ballroom couldn't hear it as she worked through the rest of the evening. She couldn't stop thinking about kind gray eyes and a smile that had made her feel beautiful for the first time in 5 years. That night, after tucking Rose and Lily into their shared bedroom and listening to their prayers, Emma stood in her tiny kitchen, staring at the business card Ethan had somehow slipped into her apron pocket. Cornerstone Cafe, tomorrow at 2. It was impossible, of course. Men like Ethan Blackwell belonged to a different world entirely. But as she finally fell asleep, Emma allowed herself to imagine what it might feel like to be seen as someone worth knowing. Someone worth pursuing. Someone worth more than the cruel words that still echoed in her darkest moments. Maybe impossible things happened to people who had learned to hope again.